How's it going, Facebook? Happy Monday. How y'all doing? Rob here. I'm at the City Fam offices. And before we get started, I got a lot to talk about. But before we get started, I just want to encourage everyone to let me know that they can see and hear me okay. Let me know that you were here, even if you're watching a replay. Say hi, say hey, say hello. However you greet people, let me know that you watched. And if it's your first time watching, or if you've never left your location where you live in a comment before, go ahead and do that now, because we have groups all over that are forming, and I'm going to tell you about that in a moment. I entitled this video, Why Waiting Sucks Sometimes, because I just want to talk about some of the challenges and some of the struggles that come along with making this decision. I'm going to talk about some of the good stuff that comes along with it, but I'm going to talk about that. So again, hey Dale, how are you? I think you're Chicago, am I right? I'm getting good at this. It's almost like that card game where you have to kind of remember where the card was and flip it over and try to match them up. Margie Lee, SoCal, City Fam SoCal in the house. Liz Dabowski, how are you? Again, drop me a comment, even if you're watching a replay, let me know that you're here. And if you haven't left your city before, leave that in the comments and we will get you connected. So just really quickly, let me tell you about the cities where we've identified people before I get into what I mentioned earlier, what we're going to talk about. We've identified clusters of members in the following cities: Albuquerque, Anchorage, Alaska, Atlanta, Aurora, Austin, Baltimore, Birmingham, Brisbane, SoCal, Southern California, Northern California, Charlotte, Chicago, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Colorado Springs, Columbus, Dallas, Dallas, Delaware, Des Moines, Detroit, Washington, D.C., Frederick, Maryland, Grand Rapids, Greenville, Houston, Huntsville, Indianapolis, Jacksonville, Kansas City, Missouri, Knoxville, Lakeland, Las Vegas, Lexington, Los Angeles, Memphis, Milwaukee, Nashville, New York City, Oklahoma City, Orlando, Pueblo, Philadelphia, Phoenix, Scottsdale, Pittsburgh, Port St. Lucie, Raleigh, Richmond, Roanoke, Rochester, Sacramento, San Antonio, San Diego, Seattle, South Florida, Southern Pennsylvania, Southern Utah, St. Louis, Sydney, Australia, Tampa, Tucson, Tulsa, Virginia Beach, and Wichita. Whew. Guys, why that's important is if you've been watching my stuff for a while, go back and look at some of my old vlogs that I made years ago. God gave me a vision he didn't tell me what it was. 20 years ago, he told me I was going to be doing something outside the box and people were going to come to Baltimore from all over the world to be part of it. And I didn't know what it meant. Of course, 20 years ago, I had to go through a lot to learn what I know now, but it's starting to happen. I've been talking about this for years, and it's actually happening. Every one of those cities I mentioned, there's at least 3 people that are part of our network. They're either part of City Fam or they're part of Why Waiting Works, or they joined our group. And they told us where they live, and now they're in a Facebook message with other people in their area. And I really believe this is a movement, guys. This is a great movement. Maybe the biggest movement. I don't know. Whatever. I don't want to get into that. Doesn't matter. But it's a big movement, and we're at the very beginning. And it's like a tidal wave that I see building, and it's awesome. It's going to be a fun ride. So if you're close to any one of those cities and you're not yet connected to a group, reach out to me. Or actually, just drop your comment, your city in the comments below. If you're not in one of those cities, we have people in hundreds of other cities that have reached out. There's just not 3 people yet in that city. As soon as we get 3, we put them into a Facebook message. When we get about 5 or 10, then we do a vision call. So just this week, we got groups that are starting in Southern Utah, Southern Pennsylvania, Atlanta, Nashville, Southern California, and Northern California, all this week. Tonight I have vision calls with Tampa and South Florida. So every day it's growing. Every day that list that I just told you gets bigger. There's always a new city or 2 that gets added almost every day. All right, thanks for listening. So I'll go back through some of these comments in a moment. So I want to talk a little bit about the struggles that come along with waiting, because it's definitely the hard road, which is why a lot of people don't do it. For the most part, over the last 10 years, I've denied myself of most worldly pleasures, like sex, making money, and the comfort that comes along with that. Mostly those 2, but I'm sure there's plenty of others. I've lived a pretty disciplined life, and for that though, I really feel like God gave me the plan. Like he gave me the blueprints about how to do something big, and something very impactful. But it came at, you know, a pretty good, you know, hefty personal cost to me. And I made a post a couple years ago when I was struggling. It was just it was a hard season that I was going through. Not unlike the season that I'm currently in all honesty. It's probably a little bit harder. I was living with the guy Craig Blinky I went to high school with, and it was just things at City Fam were not working, and I didn't have any money, and I didn't have a girlfriend, and there was very little light at the end of the tunnel, and I was just really struggling. And I was depressed, and somebody had reached out to me, and they told me how much they read the book and how much it helped them, and how after that they made that decision to wait, and their whole life changed, and now they were living this great life, going after their dreams, and they got out of this cycle of toxic relationships and bad decisions. And I was like, it made me think, because I was in so much pain at the time, and I thought about all the loneliness that I went through to learn the lesson about waiting and to be able to write the book. And I had to go through a lot of pain to write that book. And it got me thinking about what if our pain is associated somehow to how much good and how much we're able to help others? What if the amount that you would suffer is directly linked to the amount that you could alleviate other people's suffering? So think about that. If somehow you were able to suffer to alleviate other people's suffering, would you do it? I think a lot of people would. I think about Jesus, right? Jesus suffered greatly, and he alleviated more people's suffering than anybody in the history of the world. But it made me think about that with the book, because I went through all this pain. It cost me a lot, but it helped somebody else and alleviated their pain. And I felt like, when we're out there sinning and you're living for yourself, you're kind of transferring your pain onto other people. Like when I would go out and have sex, I was using sex like a drug, because it made me feel good, it validated me, whatever else. But, it was causing me and others pain. It was like I was transferring my pain onto someone else. When we use each other, if you sell someone drugs, like a drug dealer, you're making money, which helps you, alleviates your pain, but now you're transferring your pain onto them. So it's like, I feel like there might be this link between the two, like how much you're willing to suffer might be directly linked to alleviating other people's pain, and versus just putting weight on other people's shoulders, which is what we do when we use each other or sin against each other in the various ways. So it was just something I had a thought about that I wanted to talk about. But the last vlog I did, I made a post about feeling justified. I was like, if I was to go out and sin, I would be justified because I put my time in. And I want to clarify that, because I don't think I did a good job of explaining myself. What I was saying is having sex, right? The desire to have sex, intimacy, let's just say, companionship, all that, yes. But I do, but sex also. It's a very normal desire. It's a natural desire to want to be physical, to want to express yourself sexually. And when God isn't meeting that for you in a healthy way, I'm tempted to go out and meet it in unhealthy ways sometimes. And it's like, that's when I say why waiting sucks, it's because sometimes you'll just sit there and you can feel the burning, the desire to be with someone, or to, the deprivation, if you will. And it's like, God has the power to meet that. He's had the power to meet that desire of mine in a healthy way, which would be to get married, fall in love and get married to someone. And then I could, have all the guilt-free sex I want. But he's chosen not to do that, and which makes me tempted at times to meet it in unhealthy ways. Now look, that temptation, that desire has gone down over time, certainly, but I get it. I bag on people that are in the church that aren't being obedient in this area, but I understand it. I do. I get why it happens, because it's so freaking hard sometimes to hold that line when you're like, I was talking to a girl. There was a girl I was on a call with, City Fam girl, recently, and she was 37 years old, and she had one slip in her life last year. I said, "You were a virgin?" And she's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Wow, that's freaking incredible." And I was, talking to her, and I'm like, there's so many components that go into this waiting thing and you being successful, because all it takes is for you to get horny, depressed, resentful, angry at God. Like any one of those things could lead to a slip. It's not just, it's just horny. No, it could be any of those things. And I was just like, I really commended her. I'm like, 36 years you went without a slip, and all the roller coaster of emotions that you go through during that time, where all the things, you're depressed, you're angry, you're like, what the hell, God? Like, you start wondering if other people aren't doing it right and you're wrong, like all the things that go into it. And I just was like really impressed by that. And, like I was driving yesterday and I thought, have you ever been behind like a car and, like you blew your horn, like they were stopped in the middle of the road or whatever, and you're like, what the hell is this person doing? And you lay on your horn, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh, there was someone in front of them, or maybe a kid was walking across the street, and you're like, you feel like a dumbass because you're like, oh, I didn't see that. Like that's what it's like with God, where he's always doing something. He's always doing something through the delay or the disappointment or whatever it is. And it's like, we just want to like grab hold of it and take control and, lay on the horn and be like, what the F are you doing, God? Like, don't you see him down here? And then it's something later reveals itself. And then you're like, like there's been plenty of those moments over the last 10 years where, like he was doing something and I couldn't see it. And here I am bitching and complaining about it. And not to say that that's a bad thing, because I do feel like God appreciates your honesty, versus you just coming to him and giving him some recited prayer. Like sometimes I'm like, God, I'm pissed at you, like I'm resentful. Like this is what I'm feeling right now. And then later I'll usually come back and like, I acted like a child earlier, I'm sorry, but I feel like he appreciates that honesty. And I made a post on Twitter today, and it said, God answers prayers the way we would answer them if we knew what God knew. So, and I think that's the God's honest truth. I think he answers our prayers the exact same way that we would answer them if we knew what he knew. He sees everything, I see this little, sliver of what's going on. And I want to kind of complain to him and tell him how to do, you know what I mean? How to do his job. And, yeah. Anyway, I got some notes here. But, yeah, that's what I wanted to go down to. Where, like, I think, where I'll get myself into, I don't want to say trouble, but like, where if I get into victim mentality, because it's like a door where it's like, I'll have a thought where I'll attach meaning to something that's going on with my life. Like, I'll attach meaning to my bank account balance, or I'll attach meaning to a period, like it's been this long of time. And that to me means, wow, like, I'll start attaching meaning to it. And that's where it causes us to suffer. That's something that Landmark Forum actually taught me, where they go as far as to say life is empty and meaningless. Like, it's when we attach meanings to things that maybe don't necessarily mean those things. We attach it. That's what causes us to suffer. So like, I feel like if you don't do that, if you don't attach meaning, because it could mean a lot of things. Like, one of the things I mentioned in the last video is how I, basically have been deprived of sex for 17 years. And sometimes I do attach meaning to that, and it causes me to be depressed. But it could mean that a lot of things, obviously the lesson that I'll learn and the book and the things that I've been able to build because of it, that potentially like the inspiration that I've been to other people to prove that it can be done. So we have to be careful in that. We have to be careful in attaching our own meaning to things that maybe don't mean those things. Like another thing I talked about in the last vlog that I kind of think I want to explain a little bit further is I mentioned how God hems us in. And he'll put guardrails and safe, make you safe in various ways to protect you from things that would derail you or get you off track, or maybe, potentially be very negative to you in whatever ways. He'll put these guardrails. Doesn't mean that we can't ever hop over the guardrails. We can't get around it, but he does hem us in. I'll give you an example. So this whole thing that I'm building right now, okay, or God is building through me and many others, it does hinge on my obedience in the area of sex. So it's the one thing that I don't say it's the one thing I really want, but it is one thing that I definitely want. It's the one thing, if I had to put the thing at the top of the list that I missed the most, it was sex, because I had a lot of sex. And then, like I had mentioned in the last vlog, you create neural pathways. And it's hard to get used to a life where you have none for a long time. And just to continue to stay in that place of trust and learn how to be happy in other ways. And I've done a pretty good job of it. I feel like I've done a better job of it than most, but it's not been easy. So, but this whole thing that we're building, it does hinge on that. It's like, so the one thing I'm being deprived of, I can't go out and be disobedient in that area, or the whole thing would fall apart. You know, like, so God's completely hemmed me in that way, because when people come in, they're attracted through the message of waiting. And at the core of every City Fam group, even though we're not a group that's the waiting group or the sober group, or not, but at the core of that group, that little cluster of people that starts it, they have to be waiting, or at least trying to wait. Because if not, they become like every other group in the world. And nothing will destroy community faster than a group of people that are sleeping with each other. Real community. Okay, you could be drinking buddies and, you know, whatever, good time Charlies and fun friends and all that, and go out and have a really good time together. I have plenty of those friends. But I'm talking about genuine community. Genuine community is built on sacrifice. It's built on us, you know, helping each other and bending over backwards for each other, not using each other, you know. So that's why the whole thing hinges on that waiting thing. And it's like the one thing, or the major thing, the main thing, I don't know if it's one of many things in all honesty, but I would say it's probably at the top of my list. The thing that I'm being deprived of at the top of my list is the one thing that all this hinges on. And I have to stay in that place. And I have to wait, and I have to trust. And the longer that you wait, the more trust it requires. Because what happens is, as the thing delays, you're like, you have a lot of questions. You're like, has God forgot about me? Is he trustworthy? You know, are other people, maybe I'm wrong. You know, maybe other people are doing it right. You have all these thoughts. You know, if God was to give you the promise quickly, it doesn't require faith. But when it stretches out over decades, it requires you to continue to keep believing, especially if you're not seeing results in other areas that you feel like maybe was the reason why you made that sacrifice. So for me, like I said a couple of years ago, when I was really suffering or struggling, it was because I felt like I'd made these great sacrifices for City Fam and it wasn't even working. You know, so, and that made it worse. And then to continue to hang on and believe that if you just stay obedient, God's going to show up and he's going to do it. He's going to bring that person into your life, and he's going to bless the work of my hands and all those things. It does. It requires a lot of faith, you know. Jesus said, abide in me, and let my words abide in you, and you will bear much fruit. So, like, what does that mean? What does it mean to abide? It means to do your best to be obedient, and it means to stay where he puts you. And it's simple, but it's the hardest thing to do. Because again, when that time stretches and you're just sitting there waiting, abiding, and doesn't seem like anything's happening sometimes, and you're like, you just got to keep trusting that, you know, like, did I miss something? You know, or is he coming back around for me? It ain't easy. And this is why sometimes waiting sucks, you know, but it's the most beneficial thing that you'll ever do. Second to accepting Jesus, one of the most beneficial. I'd say it's in the top 5. It's definitely in the top 5. If you want to make your full impact and reach your full potential, it's definitely probably even in the top 2 or 3. But it's super difficult. It ain't easy. This is why we need each other. This is why we got to be in community, because you're never going to make it alone, you know. It's just way too hard. I mean, sometimes I've barely made it with my group of friends, with City Fam. It's still been just that challenging. So let's talk a little bit about some of the stuff that's going on, and I'll go back through these comments here in a moment. So we had a watch party. We got watch parties going on every week. I'm pretty excited about them. They've been a little light in Baltimore. I know Elaine just tuned in. She's been coming. Thank you, Elaine. But Oklahoma City has been killing it. Julie has been averaging over 20 people every week at our watch party. And it's not an official City Fam function or event, excuse me. Anyway, but it, you know, Julie's a believer, and we're allowing our leaders or members to stream this because we think it's good for the health of the group, even though we're not faith-based. So Julie's got like 20 plus people coming every week, and you know, I wouldn't be surprised if there's been several people that have gotten saved. You know, there's people that are being exposed to the gospel that maybe don't go to church, maybe haven't gone to church in a long time, maybe never gone to church. They came to a renegade at a bar, you know, maybe they were just there to have some beer and some drinks, and they met some good people, and next thing you know, boom, they're in the living room and they're hearing the gospel. And that's the way it works sometimes, and that's the way it's going to work in all these groups across the world. Is eventually we believe there's going to be a lot of watch parties, and there's going to be a lot of people being, you know, from the bar to the watch party. And then we have community groups too that are small group curriculum. So anyway, telling y'all too much. That's only for the groups that are starting, but we have a lot of resources that we're providing them to help them make an impact in their cities. So if you do want to know more about the watch parties, if you want to attend virtually, you can drop the comment, let's go. I'll go back through this stream later, and I'll try to find everybody that commented, and I'll send you the link to join us. You can join me Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern, live, streaming Epic Live, or you can join Julie on Sunday nights and you can watch the replay. I will say this, if you're tech savvy, please reach out to me. Drop me a private message, or just drop the word tech, T-E-C-H, in the comments below, because I need somebody to help me with tech on these watch parties, because I don't know what I'm doing, and the stream has been a little spotty, and I need a different service, and I need somebody to help with that. So if you're tech savvy, please reach out to me. Lori Lockamy, some of y'all have heard me talk about Lori back in the day, Pastor Lori. She was my first life coach. She's an amazing individual. Her and I are going to be leading a freedom group. It's a small group curriculum, all based on the two trees in the Garden of Eden: the tree of knowledge of evil, good and evil, and the tree of life, and how to live out of those trees. And it's going to be a virtual group, so we're going to be opening up to people all over the world. It's going to be starting on September 15th, and I think that's a Thursday. So Thursdays from I think we're going to go 7 to 8:30 or 7:30 to 9. So keep an eye out for that. I'm not going to ask you to comment anything yet, or you know what, go ahead. I don't want you to miss it. Drop the word freedom in the comments if you want to be part of the small group, and I'll let you know when the group starts. I'll post the link to the Facebook event so you can join us. We're going to go see David at Sight and Sound Theater with, let me actually, before I change subjects, with the Freedom Group, what we're going to do at the very end, I don't know if it's a 12-week study, but at the end of the small group, Epic in Baltimore is having a conference, a weekend conference, so Friday and Saturday, where people come. I did this a few years ago, and it's basically, consummates or wraps up, kind of puts a nice bow on the small group. So what we're going to encourage everybody to do that's taking this small group virtually is we want you to come to Baltimore, and we're going to figure out places for people to stay, but it's going to be in December. It's going to be at Epic. And then, of course, we'll make sure that there's some City Fam events going on that weekend, and you can meet the Baltimore fam, and it's going to be awesome. So I don't have the date for the Freedom Conference, but it will be in early December, I believe. Again, I think it's 12 weeks from the time we start. All right, lastly, David. We're going to go see David at Sight and Sound with Epic on October 15th, 2022. If you want information about that, you can comment David, and I'll get you. We're going to actually drive up to Lancaster and meet everybody from Epic. We'll probably eat up there, and then we'll go see the production. Also, we're looking for two things for the City Fam headquarters. One, we're looking for somebody that's an accounts receivable specialist and an accounts payable specialist. We need some help in our finance department. So if that's you, I would love to have a conversation with you. Private message me if you can, and I'll get back to you with more information. We're also looking for an attorney for our board of directors. So if any attorneys are out there, I wouldn't mind talking to you as well. I'm continuing to work on the business plan for home. So hopefully if y'all are, most of you, I'm guessing, are the praying types, please pray for me in that area. Pray that God opens the door to home for us. It's very layered. I mean, we need to raise the money. The building needs to become available. We need the right purveyors. We need the right financial structure to raise the money. We need an integrator, somebody to run it. There's a lot of needs there. And home is like my Jericho. Like home is the Israelites took the promised land little by little. They didn't take it all at once. But there was a moment when Jericho's walls fell. And it was like, that was the moment, right? That was the moment that their wilderness was over. And for me, home is that home is that thing. When we get into home, now look, we're going to continue to grow. I know over time, we're going to enlarge our territory until Jesus comes back. But home is Jericho. Home is that when the walls fell for Israel, that was the moment. And that's what home is for us. When we get into home, that's going to be our Jericho. So if you could pray for that God would open the doors to that, I would greatly appreciate it. We're going to start doing a push for my Facebook course called Proverbs 31 Blueprint. So it's a 6-week program designed to help you get crystal clear on your purpose and then set up a life management system to achieve it. So it's great. I mean, I developed it, but I'm not being biased. It is really life-changing if you take it seriously. So look out for that. Over the next 7 to 10 days, I'm going to be opening the doors to that. And then lastly, I'm looking for a TikTok person. So if you're out there and you're really good at making TikTok videos, I would love to talk to you as well, because we want to start pushing out more content on TikTok specifically, because we really feel like, well, that's where a lot of our people have been finding us lately, as they've been finding us on TikTok and coming into our world. So if you're good at TikTok, we're looking for somebody that can be the TikTok director of CityFam headquarters, and I would like to have a conversation with you. So let me go back through some of my comments here and see what's going on. Christy Dayton, how are you? I'm not sure if you're still here. Pittsburgh in the house. What's up, Liz? Elizabeth Pina. Jessica Lynn. Hey, Jessica. Tell Jess I said hi. Joe Davis. What's up, Joe? Elizabeth Pina Crusetta. Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Okay, I'm going to check out our spreadsheet and see if we got anybody there. Kimberly Cavalieri Rodriguez. How are you? Maria Campy. Thank you for doing these, she said. Of course, Maria, thank you. It's therapeutic for me, honestly. Sometimes it just helps to get it off your chest, because I don't want to feel like an imposter ever. And sometimes I have really wrong desires, like I don't want anyone to ever get the impression that what I'm doing is easy for me. It's not as easy at all. And, everybody gets a cross to bear, right? Jesus said, if you want to come after me, you must deny yourself, take up your cross daily and follow me. People's crosses are different for different people. This is one of mine. Liz Dabowski, some told me once, don't waste your pain. Good. No greater love than to give your life for another. That's right, Christy, yep. Lay down your life for a friend. So you're suffering on their part. You're suffering on behalf of them. Maria Campy said Lakeland, Florida. Right. That's why I thought you were from. You said West Coast Florida. I thought Lakeland was over there. So we do have a group in Lakeland. I don't know how many people are there, but if you're not in that Facebook Messenger group, I'll connect you. Of course, Dale, that we all slept. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's batting 1,000. It is hard, and I'm grateful that you are living this out with everyone. I'm teaching my kids this too. Awesome, Kimberly. Tell them to tune in. If they're old enough, add them to the Waiting Works community. Leah Osborne, how are you? He does, yeah. He sees the big picture. Hey, Lisa Holt, old friend, how are you? Raquel Rodriguez. Liz Dabowski said, my kids are the age where I need to be a good example to them, taking my daughter on a trip to do Passport to Purity with her. My kids still remind me I used to sleep in the same bed as my ex-boyfriend. We all have regrets, but the Lord forgets. He does. And hey, look, all that matters is what you do now. Val Vitella, how are you? Mike Spencer. Thanks, Dale. Sue Bauer. Who else is here? Alicia Hickey. She said, I wondered how you felt about that. Your ministry platform hinges on your obedience to submission to what God's word says about sex. Pressure, but with God it's possible. But in all honesty, Alicia, if it wasn't for that, I'm going to be honest, I wouldn't be obedient, because I would have tried for a while, but I would have never been able to make it this long if it wasn't for the platform and the way he hemmed me in. I didn't know it was happening when it was happening. I didn't know how he was moving things around. That video went viral. City found, like, he hemmed me in, and I didn't even know what was going on. But now I'm here, and there's some times where I'm like, I just want to, I don't even want to say it. I just want to, I just want to go out and just. That's all I knew before. It wasn't like I knew making love, and I didn't know that. I just knew sex, like casual sex. And if I'm being honest, sometimes I want it still. But it's not. It's. To me, when I say that, it's the same as me saying sometimes I want junk food. Sometimes I want fast food. Sometimes I want candy. But that's not what I really want. What I really want is to be lean and healthy. Like just in the same way, like what I really want is I want to make a big impact, and I want to be an inspiration to people, and I want to have peace with God. But sometimes I still want candy, but I don't really want it. That's not what I want most. It's just what I want right in that moment. And I would probably go out and do that thing in that moment sometimes if it wasn't for the fact that God hemmed me in. He gave me this platform. He gave me all of you, and I don't want to let you down. And it doesn't mean that I won't. I still might one day. I don't know, but I don't want to. And I'm, doing my best not to. So far, for the most part, it's worked out pretty good. Dale says, absolutely, God wipes the slate clean. Admire that you're walking it out, and it's something you've had to live out over time. God will honor it. Thanks, Alicia. I believe so too. I do. I've talked about, I think that we're going to lead the greatest revival in the history of the world. I'm not even saying that as a joke. I do think that that's what this is. I know that prayer that I prayed to God, and I look at everything, the way this is all happening with City Fam and the book, and I'm like, he's answering this prayer. So like, yes, I've been deprived of things, but look at what's happening. Is it worth it? Yeah, it's worth it. It's becoming more and more worth it. Like, there were times where I wondered, I'm like, I don't know, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, but it's definitely worth it. So, I'm sure there's a correlation between how much you suffer and how much reward there is, Elaine said, God is definitely driving home the fact that I can't just build my life for me, that my single time is almost over. That's awesome. I feel the same way, Elaine. I feel like a wife that's close. I'd love to get married by my 50th birthday, which is 3 months away. And I'm not even dating anybody, but I'm like, how cool would it be to be able to turn 50 and hop on a plane and go on my honeymoon? That'd be awesome, right? Like, anyway, will it happen? It's take a miracle. Lisa Holt said, waiting is a blessing, because look at how the dating cesspool is nowadays, no doubt. No respect and no values whatsoever in the dating landscape. Waiting is a journey in accordance to his plan and purpose. Never negotiate your worth because you give. Much is required. So waiting is definitely a blessing for me, because I get to see all the mask unveiling that will prevent me from going on the wrong path. Amen. Look, it's easy to spot the red flags when you don't have sex. I actually did a podcast with Dawn Masler, a second one, and she talked about this part of your brain that shuts off when you fall in love, when you after sex, for women, usually when they have this oxytocin release, your amygdala, which is kind of like your warning system, shuts down, and that's why you act crazy and miss red flags and different warning signs. But just to touch on something that kind of came to my mind when I read that. So there was somebody that reached out, and she basically was like, kind of trying to give me some advice. She was trying to be helpful, and she was like, look, there's so much more to a relationship than sex, and you talk about sex a lot. And I'm like, yeah, and I do want all those things. I want companionship. I just want somebody to kick it with, hold their hand, somebody to tell me things are going to be okay, a helpmate, somebody to, maybe help her out with the household chores, someone that I can love also and serve. But I also want sex. And I'm like, and this was a woman, and I'm like, I don't think y'all get what it's like for a man with sex. I know women like sex, but they don't, it's not the same. It's not the same, and I know people will get mad at me for saying that. I heard Stefan Speaks say, I don't know if I've ever shared this before, but Stefan Speaks, I was at a conference with him, and he said if there were two rooms, and if in the one room it was all the sex and with all the people and all the freaky sex and whatever, he said, and that was in this room, and in this room was everything but the sex. It was like bubble baths and hot tea and good conversation and yoga and whatever. He goes, the majority of men would go in this room and the majority of women would go in this room. And I'm like, he's right. So that tells you that this is not the same. So when I bitch and moan about being deprived of sex for this long, I don't think women understand. I think a man would understand, and they would be like, yeah, that ain't easy. Especially when you had as much as I did previously. And you're around the majority of people that don't have that value. So you're always the one having to say no, make the right decision, go home. Like saying no to your flesh over and over and over all the time, right? Like it gets tiring. You know, I was thinking about, and you know, stupid of me to even compare myself to the Lord, but like imagine, like when they say Jesus, when he was, you know, before he got crucified, they were pulling his hair of his beard out, right? And he just took it. And when he could have stood up or whatever, he could have spoke a word and killed everybody, called down the angels and destroyed. I mean, he had all the power, but he endured it. But I'm like, imagine, you know, if he had to endure that for like years, just sit there and let them pull your beard out while you have the power to slay them and you're just taking it. At some point, it's, and I'm not saying, on some level, I don't know why I had that analogy, but like, I have the power to stop this, to stop the pain that's associated with my season of waiting anytime I want. I could go get laid right now, but I choose not to because it's what I know God wants me to do. But it's not easy, and after a while, it's tiring. It's exhausting. And I'm not saying there's a lot of good stuff. I'm just being real with y'all and saying, if that's the way you feel. There was another guy in the Waiting Works community that reached out to me, whose name I won't mention, and he slipped up recently. You know, he slept with some girl, and you know, he was wanting to talk with me, and basically it was a girl that had been sex trafficked, and she was really broken, but he said, you know what? If I'm being honest with myself, if she wants to do it again, I'll be right there. And I was like, that's real, you know? I get it. It ain't easy, you know? It's not easy, because I don't know how long this guy, I think he's been waiting for a while, and then he gets somebody that's interested in him, and it's hard to say no to. But it's the best thing you can do, which is why you got to surround yourself with good people that can encourage you, because it is so easy to fall off. And it is the way that the devil is going to take what you want from you. It's you know, that to me, it's the most destructive thing to your long-term dreams that you could do, which is why it's so beneficial, because it's that hard to not, and there's a correlation between it. So let's keep going. Desanka Dukic, how are you? Princess Eve, she's in Africa. Liz Dabowski said, let's go. Okay, I'll get back to you with that. Hey, Heather Morrison, Freedom, I'll get back to you on that. David's at Sight and Sound is phenomenal. Took my daughter to see it for her 13th birthday. I love that place. Julie Bancroft, how are you? Barbara Kinney. Stacy Thomas down in Texas. Jessica Carter, what was that? I didn't catch that. What are you talking about, Jessica? I've vented to Jessica more than once. Let's say it. How's it going with Jackie Dorman? So, yeah, it's a good question, Barbara. Jackie and I were going live in the group on the regular. I was pushing people to her coaching programs. She was giving me a little kickback. And then she just became really inconsistent with how she worked. Like it was inconsistent. And I just told her that I wanted to bring in other coaches into the program, that, you know, basically she wouldn't have exclusivity, and she got really, she got nasty actually, and she left. But she was wanting to go live that very night, but because she couldn't go exclusive, she just was like, oh, you know, whatever. So yeah, we're not working together anymore. And in all honesty, like, since we brought it up, I don't know if I even believe in what she promotes and advocates in the married in 12 months or less. Like, look, guys, God has a plan for you to find your person, and you can't make it happen on your own. Now look, you can put yourself in a position for it to happen. You can get on some dating apps and you can make yourself look nice, and you can learn all the boundaries and how to spot the red flags, and become a Proverbs 31 woman, or a man of God to attract that person. You can do all that, but it's not like you can just go out and decide to make it happen, and like, anytime I've told that to people, especially guys that were out like working a dating app like it was their job, they would be like, a man who finds a wife finds a good thing. Like, if the Bible says you got to find her. Well, let me ask you a question. Have you ever found something that you weren't looking for? I bet you have. Or have you ever found something that you kind of knew you needed, but you weren't out like looking for it? Like, you just, oh yeah, you came across it. There it is. I need that. Of course, we all have, a million times. So a man who finds a wife finds a good thing doesn't mean that you need to go out and make it happen. Anytime I've seen people do that, they set themselves up for failure. Like, even in Jackie's case, she said that she met her current husband, David, before the ink was dry on her divorce papers. And then she said she didn't like him at first. But then she tells other people that they should settle, in one of her posts. And I'm like, just because you decided to, maybe you couldn't take being single for that long. I don't know why you went from being married to your next relationship that quick. I do see people rebound and do things like that all the time, and it's usually not good. So like, for her to tell other people that they should do that, I think that is weak, because you couldn't hack being single. Not saying she couldn't, because her and David have been married 15 years, so God bless them. It seems like it's a good partnership. But don't tell other people that they should just jump into a relationship, that they can make it happen. Like, I think if you're a mature believer, you have discernment, and if God's leading you to date someone, or to even date at all. And if he's not, he might just have you in the waiting room, and you can't remove yourself. So like, I don't know that I believe in everything that she teaches, but hey, I do think that she's smart. She's got a lot of wisdom. It's just on that one thing about the married in 12 months or less, like, you can just go out and make it happen. I could probably come up with 100 scriptures to talk about where God orders your step and he controls your seasons and your timing. And I don't know that that's biblical, but let's keep going. Amanda Phillips is here. What's up, Beverly? Change the thought to, I get to save myself for one special person instead of the negative. Well, okay, I could try that. I'm not sure that that's gonna make the biggest difference, but maybe. Marriage is a study of selflessness. I wish I had more time. As the woman I'm the heart of my family. I have to think of my future husband. That is hard. Aaron Polinati. Loneliness and isolation make it even harder to wait. So thankful I found this awesome community. You're welcome, Liz. I'm glad God led me to create it. All right, let's keep going. What else? James Damiano. Are you familiar with attachment styles? Samantha Dar said yes. I mean, a little bit. I've heard that I'm avoidant, and I think that they're probably right. The people, what I've learned of avoidant, it sounds like me. Like, bring people in, push them away, and it has to do with like childhood trauma, or just things that you went through as a kid. So yeah, I'm a little familiar, and I think that that's something I'm going to probably have to overcome at some point, work on. Dale Howard says, easier for men to have much sex, no pregnancy for one thing, so it's encouraged. It's considered the manly thing. Let me see here, sorry. To do. In Bible times, men were encouraged to sire many children, to form huge tribes, so there's lots of reasons. I don't condemn men like I did anyone for that. Okay, all right, cool. I think that's it. Covered a lot in this vlog, so I don't see anybody. Only saw one comment of somebody's location. So most of y'all, I'm guessing, have already given us your locations. Yeah, so we're in this together, right? Love you guys. See ya.